MMA fans are still talking about a potential Bo Nickal and Colby Covington fight as if it's a real thing. And we got an update from Colby on his YouTube channel. We'll talk about that. And I'm basically going to tell you guys why I don't think this fight's ever going to happen. And people need to, give their hopes up of this coming to fruition. My name is James Lynch. So let's go back to Friday. So on Friday, Bo Nickal takes to Twitter. I think it was around Friday, late last week. And you can read the title here from Bloody Elbow. It says Bo Nickal pitches Colby Covington's team up to force the UFC into changing White House plan. Kind of a weird title there. But basically, Bo Nickal went on Twitter and he says, Colby, I haven't signed a contract yet. He wrote on X. We can still make it happen. In all honesty, I do think you deserve to be on the White House card. If you want to fight, we can call both Hunter Campbell together and make it happen. So Bo putting the ball in Colby's court. But then Colby comes out on his YouTube channel and says this. And this, again, just further proves my point that I don't think this fight's going to happen. Here's Colby Covington on his YouTube channel. We're not going to watch the whole clip, but here's MMA Fighting writing it up. Colby Covington tells Bo Nickal to fight him at welterweight. You won't stop talking about us being at the same weight. So for the same weight, like you claim, that means you're 190 pounds right now. You'll get a full camp. You should get down to 170 as well. I propose we do this at a weight class where one of us is ranked. There's actual stakes. So how about bring that stupid ginger bowl cut down to 170, Lloyd Christmas, and I'll grant you your wish to fight. I mean, Colby can say it a lot better than me. Grant your wish to fight the biggest name in the welterweight division. We could do it this summer too if you want, but let's get one thing crystal clear. I'm not going to take away an opportunity from someone who, unlike you, has done things the hard way to earn a spot on a big card like Kyle Dawkins. He's 10 times the man and fighter you could ever be. You're just a competitor. Anyways, he's trying to talk trash I don't need to read the whole thing here, but he's trying to talk trash to Bo Nickal. But what happened? I mean, this Colby a little while ago, and I'll have to bring up the clip somewhere, but Colby was like all about fighting at 185. Let me just find a quick Google search on this. I remember him mentioning that. Here's an interview he did 2 months ago with the Schmo. There we go. Colby Covington. We don't have to watch the whole interview. Shout out to my guy, the Schmo, one of my favorite people in the industry. Colby Covington announces move to 85, calls out Sean Strickland and Robert Whitaker. That was 2 months ago. Now he wants to fight Bo Nickal at 170. My take on this is, and I mean no disrespect to Colby. Again, I got nothing against Colby. I'm just a realist as how his career is going to be playing out. This is an excuse. This is another way for the fight not to happen with him putting the stipulation out there. Because what happened between now and this 2 months ago saying you're going to move up to 85, he's sort of contradicting himself. Not to mention the fact, and I've said this for a while, like this White House card is something that we've known about for like close to a year, right? It's been out there in the news that it was going to be a thing. And I heard from so many Colby fans that said, oh, Colby's plan all along is to get on the White House card. And I know there's going to be people watching this video who say, well, he tried to get on the White House card, but again, I didn't see much of a push. Because some of the names he was mentioning, if we look through I'm not going to go through every interview, but we were hearing names like Patty Pimblett, Gilbert Burns, some of these other names that he was looking to fight. And then this Bo Nickal thing comes out of nowhere because, of course, Nickal was at RAF and Colby, was kind of talking some trash on him, and that fight kind of came to fruition. And it seemed like, yeah, that fight makes a lot of sense, but again, I didn't see a huge push from Colby. Only now he's doing more MMA interviews. I know he would do, things like Fox Nation and Patrick Bet-David and, sort of bigger political outlets as far as interviews, and would sort of briefly talk about his UFC return. But to me, if you really wanted this fight, where's the push here? Where are you doing more interviews with MMA media? As far as I know, only MMA Junkie and Submission Radio Dennis were the ones that interviewed him recently. Where's the push to make this fight happen? I think it's very convenient that Colby's doing this push after the fight with Kyle Dawkins is booked with Bo Nickal, and now it looks like Colby he's basically trying to sell us that he tried to get the fight, and now it's not happening because the UFC won't let him. Which, to be honest, and here's another thing that people forget. People are like, oh, you got to have Colby on the White House card, with everything that he's done, Trump supporter, all that stuff. But do people forget that the fight he had against Leon Edwards, where Donald Trump was in attendance, was one of the worst welterweight title fights we've had of all time? Why on earth would the UFC risk having a similar performance like that on the White House? I don't think that was ever in the plan. So I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. First off, I don't think Colby's ever going to fight in the UFC again. There has been no credible reporting, no Dana White mentioning Colby, no reporters going out there saying, I'm hearing this, since Colby's last fight. Colby's last fight was December of 2024 against Joaquin Buckley. That was the last UFC fight he had. Since that time, there's been nothing credible. Like even before, when Colby was trying to get, for example, after the Edwards fight, we would hear Dana every now and then mention something like, oh yeah, we've been trying to get some fights for Colby. It's been tough to book him, that type of stuff. But you really haven't heard that from Dana. So that makes me think the UFC isn't in much of a rush to get Colby booked for a fight. And maybe this is the UFC's doing of like, they don't want Colby to fight anymore and they're not happy with him or whatever. That could be the case too. But I also think Colby could be pushing a lot more for a fight and, come out and say, I'll fight anyone. Like this whole thing with the weight class, I read this thing and I'm just thinking, this is just another excuse of why the fight's not going to happen. Because why would Bone move down? I know that people think that Bo Nickal's too small for 85, but like, he's lost one fight in the weight class. He just won his last fight, so against Bellato. So I just don't see, or sorry, not Bellato. Who did Nickal fought, the other Brazilian guy. Why was I getting that mixed up? Rodolfo Vieira. So like, there's no reason for Bo to move down at this point. Colby is right about like, of course, if you beat a ranked fighter, it means more. But like, there's just no reason. Like if your number one goal is to get on the White House, like UFC's probably never going to do a White House card again. Why are you making the stipulation? Shouldn't it just be about fighting on the White House card? And even for Colby, like, what do you have to lose at this point? Like, again, we're talking about a fighter who has not fought since December of 2024. He's off he's lost 3 of his last 4 fights. Like, and at his age too, Colby's going to be 30. He just turned 38 in February. Like, I just don't think there's any sort of, title run in the future. And if you wanted to make a run, why wouldn't you do it in a different weight class, not a weight class where you've lost, 3 of your last 4 fights? So that's, I just think that there's still people for whatever reason thinking that Colby's going to fight in the UFC, and maybe he will. And I will come on here, and I've said this before, if I'm wrong, I will come on here and admit that I was wrong, but I just don't see that type of push for Colby to come back and fight, because to me, there should be no restrictions. There should be no, I will only fight Bo at welterweight, or there should be no, I'm only going to fight this guy or that guy. I mean, he was calling out Paddy Pimblett, who doesn't even fight at 170, right? Like, to me, these are not real call outs. It's just sort of like keeping the news moving, but nothing ever serious here. So I'm going to maintain this. I've said this about John Jones as well. Like, I don't think John Jones ever fights in the UFC again. Colby is on that list as well. I just don't think there's any incentive for Colby to come back and fight. I don't think there's any incentive from the UFC to have him fight. I think him doing RAF is fine. Good for him. Keep active, whatever. I'm sure they're paying okay. Keep doing that. I don't have a problem with that, because I just don't think in 2026 that Colby Covington gives much trouble to the welterweights in the division right now. And that's not a result of him being a bad fighter. It's just Father Time catches up to everyone. I mean, if we're looking at welterweight right now, like, he's 14. I'm picking most of these guys to beat Colby outside this. Maybe Gilbert Burns he beats. Jeff Neal's out of the rankings, which I just noticed, but I guess that makes sense because Medic just beat him. But I mean, I really have a hard time seeing anyone in this top 15 losing to Colby Covington at this point. And again, it's not because Colby's a bad fighter. It's just because we're at that point in his career where he's getting a bit older. So yeah, I just I saw this right away, and my first thought was like, this is just another excuse. If Colby really wants this fight, you fight him at any weight class, you do whatever it takes. And again, you got to sell it to the UFC. This is going to be better than Kyle Dawkins. I think the Kyle Dawkins booking is just like they want Bo to fight someone that he could potentially beat. And by the way, I don't think that is a guarantee. I think Kyle Dawkins, you've seen his second run in the UFC. It's been pretty impressive. I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. I think Kyle's certainly turned his career around a bit. He's on a nice win streak. I would not count Kyle out of this fight either. So that could end up backfiring. But you have Bo Nickal on the card because he's your All-American, UFC prospect. You have to put him on there. They don't need Colby. And if Colby was on this card, I don't think it's much of a needle mover in 2026 as it is. If we're talking, 2022, 2023, then yeah, sure. Colby being, what he was in the prime of his career. But right now, I just don't think there's incentive on the UFC's part. And I really don't think there's incentive on Colby's part. But what I think Colby's doing, and I mean this with all respect, is that I think he's trying to make it look like the UFC is preventing him from getting this fight. But I think where Colby's losing people a bit is there could be more of a push for him to get this fight. Stop making these stipulations. Fight him in any weight. Who cares? You're on a losing streak. It's not going to make much of a difference if you go up to 85 and lose. And plus, if he could have gone up to 85 and lost, he could have just made the excuse that Bo was too big for him. So again, I just don't get this. I mean, I do get it. I think we're all being tricked into thinking this is like a thing, the same way we were tricked into thinking that John Jones was going to come back. I don't think it happens. And I think you can blame the UFC, and I think you can blame Colby as well. I think he needs to do more on his part if he wants this fight. So let me know your thoughts in the comments here. Again, I'm going to stand on this, theory that I don't think Colby fights in the UFC anymore. And I don't mind that. He's had a great career. He really, did, ever since the whole gimmick came into place when the UFC told him to be more exciting, it worked. It got him opportunities, got plenty of title fights. That's a pretty great career. There's some fighters that compete in the UFC that never get to fight for a title. So I think Colby's had a great career, all things considered. Go fight in RAF, do your poker playing, all that. No one's complaining here. But to me, what I get annoyed with is sections of the fan base thinking that Colby's still going to fight. I just don't see it happening. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.